All right, shalom, shalom. It's Brother Yatazadak here of Israel. Before I get started, I'd like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bashim El Shai, Bashem Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Today we're going to go into Nahum chapter 3, going into the Hebrew. So Lord willing, you're edified, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bashim El Shai, Bashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Let's get right into it. Nahum chapter 3 and verse 1. Right, like I said in the previous lessons, right, this prophet Nahum spoke about the things that were revealed unto him concerning the city of Nineveh and its coming destruction. Right, you can compare it to what's happening in the latter days with Esau, Edom, which is a so-called white man today, and the things that are written in these various chapters. Right, there are visions that expound on the rise of Esau, Edom, right? The waking up of the remnant of the nation of Israel, which are the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, right? Through the power of the Spirit of Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Wawar Kakwadash, right? Those that are prophesying in these latter days, right? Concerning the things written throughout the whole volume of the book that is the Holy Bible, right? The things that are prophesied to come to pass, right? You have things like Revelation 13 and 16, which is the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast, the charagma, right? You have the coming of the third woe. You have 2/3 of your so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, which will be coerced into taking the RFID chip, destroyed in the land of your captivity, which is in these latter days known as that great city, right? Which sitteth upon many waters, like it says in the book of Jeremiah, right? Is that city like it is compared unto a boiling pot, right? Which is America Babylon the Great, which is a through the philosophies, ideologies of Esau Edom, right? His his ability to assimilate all these ancient customs into one ideology, or a mixing of ideology here in these latter days, which is why it's called Babel, which is in the Hebrew tongue Babal, meaning a mingling, which is what you see today, right? So Nahum chapter 3 speaks on these things, right? The rise of Esau Edom, mainly how he took over the Americas, the northern kingdom, via the Spaniards, via the spoiling of these the northern tribes, right? You have, for example, in particular Southern American countries, you had a spoiling of gold, silver. You had hordes of various treasures, which Esau Edom plundered, raped, robbed, and murdered our people, right? The indigenous tribes of the North Americas, which are the Native Americans today, right? The Southern Kingdom, which is Simeon, Levi, Benjamin, Judah, which are the so-called Judah's so-called African Americans today. Benjamin is the West Indians today. Simeon is the so-called Dominicans today. Levi is the so-called Haitians today. These were those that were brought via the transatlantic slave trade into the Americas, fled from Roman persecution in 70 AD, right? Which are what you would call the so-called black Jews today, right? Christian is a byword, right? We are the Israelites. Jew is a byword, right? That the Bible, we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of, right? So this is what this chapter is going into: the rise of Esau Edom, how he was given that great sword. You read about that in the book of Zechariah, in the book of Revelation. Let's bring out some precepts, right? This is Zechariah chapter I believe it's chapter 2 or verse 3. Chapter 2 or chapter 3. Zechariah chapter 1 verse 8. I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behold him, behind him were there red horses, speckled and white. Right, that red horse represents Esau Edom, right, which is the twin brother of a man named Jacob. Genesis 25 and 25 says he came out all red like a hairy garment. Jacob was the forefather of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Right, this is who you call in the modern days, right? The European and whatnot. Right, these are the things prophesied to come to pass. Right, that man riding upon that gray horse is a metaphor, right, for this man that would subdue the whole earth, right? Like it speaks about in Revelation chapter 20, right? That that man that rose up after the Renaissance era, right, to continue for a short time, right, to deceive the earth. Let's get that in Revelation chapter 6 and Revelation 6 and 4. There went out another horse that was red, and power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. That great sword is the ability of Esau Edom via his conquering sword, which is the armies of the earth, the military. Also, you have the Blackwater contractual companies, right, which Esau Edom sends throughout these various parts of the earth, right, in order to do his bidding, right. You have in the Esau Edom's army, which is called, you have Northern Command, you have Southern Command, right. You have these various brigades, which are given into his hand, right, via the Lord of Hosts to do His will and to divide and conquer these not just the other Edomite nations, not just the Ishmaelite nations, right? Even in the what you call Southern America today, right? Which is why you had Esau Edom always waging war in the Middle East, always waging war in South America, which is where you see where these various conflicts rise up out of, right? Because of that perpetual hatred, which is prophesied in the book of Ezekiel, right? So you have particular countries of the Northern Kingdom which have a history of military conflicts, but that is because of that great sword that the Lord gave. Why? Because our people have always went off, right, forsaken the Lord and His only begotten Son, right, which they were not given the majority to receive the understanding in these latter days why these things are coming to pass, right, which is the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 and on down. All these things written, right? Why we go through these things, that is because we have forsaken Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai. Most High God's name is Yahweh, Bashem is an ancient Hebrew tongue. It means in the name, right? You call him Yah, you call him Yahuwah, Yahuwah, right? Jehovah is Yahweh, right? Yahweh Shai, Hamashayach is who you call Jesus Christ, right? Because he was not an English man, he was a Hebrew, right, of the tribe of Judah. Like Abraham spoke the Hebrew tongue, he was called a Hebrew, right? So these are the things that we're bringing out in these latter days, which many will not be convinced, right, that these things are so, right? So Revelation chapter 6, like I said, Revelation chapter 20, right? Why? Because they will not receive it, because many will be blinded by the philosophies of this world, right? By the means of peace and safety, right? And other things that are beyond our reach, right? Particular circumstances, right? But we cannot understand, right, that there's a time and a place for everything, like it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, right? A time and a place for everything, nothing new under the sun. These things that you see, the nations, the tribes, their tongues, their customs, their practices, these things have not faded away, but they are still here even unto this very day, right? So these are things that, right, all nations have their particular idols, they call upon particular seducing spirits, right? They have means of, on the left hand side, they have their seers, they have their means to communicate with other spirits, but that is not what the Most High God gave unto us. He said, what? To follow his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, who you call Jesus Christ. He said to know what is written in the scriptures, right? Which is in the Holy Bible, the only book that the Lord gave unto us, right? Which is our book. We are those people. We are have been given this understanding, right? Which is so like I said, Revelation chapter 20 says what? Revelation 20 and 7, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, right? Which is in the medieval times, which what Esau Edom called the medieval times, which is also called as a Renaissance, right? You have the 500 from the 500 to the 1500s, which the Dark Ages were from the 500 to the 1500s, which was 1,000 years, to when the melanated peoples ruled, the Israelites, right? We are melanated, right? Black, brown, that's just a color. We are, right? We have a particular anointing that the Lord gave unto us, right? We're not like other people. We're not like these other tribes, right? The so-called African, which is not the same as the Negroes, right? We have a Negro descendancy, which is Negro is just like you would say indigenous, right? So we are those people. We have, right, and there's other nations that have that melanation, right? Because all nations were uh, uh, dark colored at one time, right? Or what you would say black, right? Except Esau Edom, he came out red, all red like a hairy garment. And that is that sign, that mark of Cain that you see today, right? Genesis, what is that, chapter 4, right? So like I said, right, Satan was loose 1,000 years, starting in the Renaissance era, right? Because the so-called Caucasians were chased into the Caucasus Mountains, right? They remained there 1,000 years, right? And in the 1500s, they were given that power back, right? That rule, right, to continue their wickedness upon the earth, which is but for a short time, right? Which is during the 1500s, the Renaissance, right? When the dark images of God's chosen people were whitewashed. You have a whitewashed image of Jesus Christ. You have all these things, right? If you do your research, right? If you know um, what is being expounded on in these latter days, right? You will understand that there's a great deception going on, right? Psalms 83, you have all the nations. You have Esau, Edom. You have the Ishmaelite. You have the Moabite. You have the Ammonite. The Ishmaelite is so-called Arab. The Moabite is so-called Chinese. The Ammonite is so-called Japanese. These are biblical nations that existed during since the beginning of the foundation of the world, and they still remain today, right? As well as you have other uh, tribes that have descended, for example, out of Abraham. You have other tribes that have, you have the Japhetic tribes, which are the so-called Polynesians today, which are, for example, so-called Hawaiians, right? Those are Japhetic. Japheth was the son of Noah, right? Shem was the son of Noah, right? You have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, which are the so-called Black, Hispanic, Native Americans. But you have, out of Shem came other tribes, Ishmael, which are the so-called Arabs. You have other uh, Elam, which are the East Indians today, right? They dwell in the land of India, right? All these other tribes that have come out of these various sons of Noah, Ham, right? Which are the so-called Hamites today, right? You have a Hamite, which is a African. You have a Negro, which is an African American, but is not the same people, right? And right, you have we're all mixed together. So there's sometimes it may seem like you run into a uh, person out of a particular tribe, but they are um, they look like another nation, but it's really of your people. But like it says in Book of Sirach, that a man is known by his children, right? So all these things are written for our understanding, not for all to understand, right? If you get the gist. So Nahum chapter 1 and verse 1 says, "Oh, the city of blood, it is completely deceptive. With the prey, it is filled with the prey, which says Hawaya Ayar, Damyam, Kala, Kachash, Parak, Mala'ah." And it says, "Where there is not a delivering of the spoil, La'ah, Yamayash, Tarap." Nahum 3 and 2, "The voice of the whip, and the voice of the shaking of the wheel, and the horse which gallops, and the chariot which skippeth, qual shawat wa qual rayash, upon wasawas tahar, marakabah, marakwada," right? Which that city of what? Of blood, of complete deception, right? Which is filled with the prey, and there is not a delivering of the spoil, right? Because that word parak is how you say like chapter, right? Chapter 1, 2, 3. Kash meaning to deny, right? Hawaya, which is the real word hawa, meaning a fall, meaning, for example, when a city falls, right? or a free fall, right? You go to skydive, it's called Hawa, right? Kahash is another way to say to lie or to deny, right? Parak is in the sense of dividing, right, or a chapter, right? So the what is that city, like it says here, of crime, utterly treacherous, full of violence, where killing never stops. That is America Babylon Great, right? Because not only does it push the ideology of so-called free thinking, right, but it also acts upon those ideologies, right? Like it says in the Book of Revelation, right? That let's get that real quick, actually. Slovakia. Which it says, spake as a lamb, right? Revelation 13 and 11 says what? I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, which you have your Democratic parties, you have your Republican parties, you have the conservatives, you have the liberals. These are the two wings of the same eagle, which America Babylon Great pushes out, which is these various ideologies, right? But it's really the same people making the same moves, right? Because it is to the benefit of their people, right? Of the country, which is America Babylon Great, right? So you have two horns like a lamb, right? You have, for example, what Esau Edom does is pushes his freedom, democracy upon these other nations, right? He goes in, acts peaceable, and then he takes over those countries, installs central banks, right? His philosophies, right? Speaking as a dragon and meaning what? That he goes forth and conquers, right? You see, there's no other country that has naval bases all throughout the earth, naval military bases, right? Because why? The Lord gave him that ability to go forth and conquer, which is that great sword, right? Which gives him, right, not just an unction on the left hand side, be the spiritual demon Satan, but also he has the ability, right, to be given a great army, right? Also via his technology, right? Things like brain implants, right? Virtual augmentation, reality, virtual reality augmentation classes, and things of that sort, right? All these things lead to the mark of the beast, which is the RFID chip, right? Which is what he will present to both small and great, rich and poor, to receive that either in the right um, hand or in the forehead, right? But anyways, so it says Nahum chapter 3 and verse 2, the crack of the whip, the rattle of the wheel, the galloping steed, and the bounding chariot, which is what happened via, for example, things like the Oregon Trail, westward expansion, manifest destiny, right? Let's look that up in Wikipedia, which says the Oregon Trail was a 2,170-mile east-west large-wheeled wagon route, an immigrant trail in the United States that connected the Missouri River to valleys in Oregon. The eastern part of the Oregon Trail spanned part of what is now called the state of Kansas, and nearly all of what are now the states of Nebraska and Wyoming. The western half of the trail spanned most of the current states of Idaho, and Oregon, right? Let's look at westward expansion. Now, like I said, these various chapters in the book of Nahum are speaking about Nineveh, but it is also a future prophecy of the rise of Esau Edom, right, and his kingdom being established here in uh, the latter part of the earth, right? Which you read about that in the book of Deuteronomy. Let's get that. What is it? Chapter 29. Deuteronomy 29 and 28. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, cast them into another land, as it is this day, right? Which is the land known as Arsareth in the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Let's look that up in the Blue Letter Bible. Let's just look that up in the Safari app. And then we'll get 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Which reads, And he uprooted them, the Lord, from upon their land in anger and in his fury and indignation great, and he threw them unto a land another, like it is, like unto the day this, meaning as unto this day, which says, Wayath Hashem Yahweh Ma'al Adamah Thum Ba'ap Wa Ba Chama Wa Ba Quatazap Gadal Wayashalakam Al Arataza Acharath Kayawam Chazah, which is Acharath, meaning the latter end of a thing, right? Or the hindermost of a thing, which you read about in 2nd Esdras. Let's get that real quick. Chapter 13, and 2nd Esdras 13 and 39. And whereas thou sawest that he gathereth another peaceable multitude unto him, these are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country whenever mankind dwelt. Let's read on down. Verse 45, For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. which is in the Hebrew tongue, right? A harath, right? Which means the hindermost place, hindermost land, right? Like it says here in Deuteronomy 29 and 27, which is Ratazah, meaning land, Harath, right? Or Sareth, like it says in the book of Second Esdras, right? Like you read here, 13 and 45. So let's go back to the book of Nahum. It's lock here. Let's go back to the book of Nahum. Just bear with me. Let's go to the Tanakh. Nahum chapter 3 and verse 3. The horseman descended up, and the devouring sword, and the thundering javelin, which reads Parash Ma'al, Ma'ala, Walahab, Harab, Wabarak, Hanyath. Hanyath meaning javelin, right? And the multitude of the slain, and the let's lock it. Let's go to the blue letter. Nahum chapter 3 and verse 3. Right, so it says, and the devouring sword, and the thundering javelin, and the multitude of the slain, and a heavy number of carcasses, right, which is wa kabad pakar. Kabad meaning heavy, pakar, it's another way to say something that is limp or a carcass, right? Sometimes you'll read it as nabal, right? And it says, and there is none end unto their bodies, right? Wa ayan quataza la gawaya, and which says they stumble upon their bodies. Ya kashalwa ba gawayathum, which is what you call what Christopher Cologne did when he came into the Americas. He said, I slayed, my sword did not rest until I slayed and I slaughtered many peoples, right? And this is what the Spaniard did via, right, Esau Edom, right, which is that great sword that was given unto him, right? So the horsemen were ascended up into the Americas. That devouring sword, right? The javelin, right? Because you had these particular Gadite tribes that didn't have the means, right, of having particular weapons which used gunpowder and things of that sort. Multitude that which were slain, right? Heavy corpses. There was no end to those bodies, right? Which is Esau Edom kept slain, because the Lord gave him that power, right? Nahum chapter 3 and verse 4. The multitude of the whoredoms of the harlot, which says in the blue letter, let's get that in the blue letter, which says Marab Zanawanya Zana Tawabath, which is that word Tawab meaning good or good favor, Tawabath Khan, right? So it says because of the multitude of the harlotries, which that word is zana, meaning to fornicate. Multitude of the whoredoms of that harlot, which zana means harlot, of good favor, right? Which says she that possesseth, because Baal means possessor, or Baalah is feminine for a possessor. She that possesseth, right? Which is you can translate it as a mistress. What? Witchcrafts, right? Which is that word kashap, right? Like it says in the book of the law, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, right? Which is America, Babylon the Great, right? That great mirage that is pushed upon these other nations, right? Which they are given an ability to prosper in this society, but right, it is not so with the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, right? Although we're given a particular means of prospering, right, it is not something that will last, right? Because right, you have particular entertainers that sell out, but they are not given the means, right, to continue, right, unless you gotta, right, make more sacrifices in the left hand side, do more wickedness, right, to continue, right. For example, you have particular entertainers like your Cardi B's, your Nicki Minaj, right, these Jay-Z's, right. But I'm convinced that these are that there are Hamites, that there are these other heathen tribes, right, which they're given the ability, right, to assimilate and look like Jake, but right, you got to keep in mind some Jakes look like Ham, but they are really Jakes, right? So that is that what is called in the Holy Bible the confusion of face, right? Just like you have particular Hispanic tribes that look like um, um, Polynesians, like so-called Hawaiians, but they're actually they're Jake. You have particular Polynesian tribes which look like Hawaiians, but they're actual other nations, right? They're not of our people, but these are the things that many will not understand. Not just like it says in the book of Proverbs that discerning of judgment, right? Um, Proverbs chapter 6, which says what? To deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, right? Why? Because we're destroyed for lack of knowledge, right? And we do not discern time and judgment, right? So this is how you move in society in these latter days, but not by knowing, Salakia, by knowing the times that you're in, by knowing what is going on around you, right? So that is that mistress of witchcrafts, right? Another means of deception is, which is another way to say deception, right? You have the paper dollar, you have, right, which is going to be done away with, right? You have 2/3 of our people that think this society is going to last forever, right? Which the Lord is going to make an end of this, right? When all hell breaks loose, when the RFID chip is implemented, when all hell, right, breaks loose, the third woe, right, you're gonna have chipping stations set up everywhere, right, and which is why it says, which selleth the nations, ha makarath gawayim. You have the so-called Chinese man putting on a suit like the so-called white man, right, and right, which was done back then, right. Now these nations are getting proud, they're rising up because the Lord raised them up in order to what? Great opposition to Esau Edom, right? To continue to assist Esau Edom to afflict the remnant of our people, those that believe in Yahweh Bashem El Shai, right? So all things work, right? Uh, like it says in the book of Proverbs, that the Lord turneth the hearts of man, right? The prophet Jeremiah said that what? Lord of hosts, it is not in man to know his way, but thou directest the steps of all men, right? So this is the spirit that we're in. We're in the spirit of what? Discerning what is happening and the goings about of our people in these latter days. Not just the remnant, the 2/3, right? We're prophesying, right, to the enemy, right? Prophesying the downfall of this wicked kingdom, right? Now, right, we maneuver in a society by getting our daily bread, by following particular laws of the land, right? We're not here to put that spirit of rebellion in the midst of our people, right? We're here to what? Prophesy, right? Give out the word, give the word of the Lord, right? And let our people know that these things will come to pass, thus saith the Holy Bible, right? So it says, um, upon her whoredoms, right? We saw the nations upon her whoredoms, which says Ha Makarath, Kwayim, Ba Zana Naya, Wama Shapachtha, right? And families upon her witchcrafts, right? Ba Kashapya, Nahum chapter 3 and verse 5. Behold, I am unto thee, saith the Lord, as in the Lord is fixated to judge the nations, to judge Esau Edom, 2/3 of our people, right? These are the things written in biblical prophecy, right? Yahweh Tazabawath, meaning the Lord of hosts. And I will discover, which says, Wagal Yathaya, the root word is Galah, meaning to remove or to discover. Let's get that word, slack is. Satan's trying to hinder the lesson. Thy skirts, or thy train, as in your rear, which that word is shawal, which says the train, flowing skirt of a robe, or the rear of a garment. Bottom hedge, right? For example, you have Jake in the world, right? He says you got your asses hanging out, right? Which that word is shawaliyaka, and it says upon before thee, all upon yaka, right? Which is through this word, right? You have all the Edomites calling out the Edomites, their wickedness, right? Their plans to establish a what you call a one world agenda, right? Which says, and I will make to show the nations thy filth, right? Which that word is ma'ar, ma meaning of, ira meaning nakedness, right? Or filth. And kingdoms, your abhorrence. Wama malakath qual qualanka, which is another way to say shame or detestableness, right? Nahum 3 and 6, and I will throw upon thee detestableness, which that word shakwatazah means to detest. And make thee vile, which that word is nabal, meaning to become withered, faded, senseless, foolish, right? So it would be in the sense of foolishness and your foolishness, right? Which you have sleepy, creepy Joe Biden, right? Hitting up these uh these tenderonis, right? You have his son committed all types of wickedness, right? All these things are off as hell, and they're being made manifest unto the nations, right? And thy foolishness, wanabalath yakah, and it says, and I will place unto thee wa shamath yakah, because that word sham or shayam or shawam meaning to place, shamathiyah meaning and, wa shamathiyah meaning I will place, ka unto thee, right? According uh according to the sight, right? Ka ra'ayah, right? Meaning according to a what is seen of thee. Nahum chapter 3, verse 7. And it will come to pass, all that look upon thee, they shall flee. That word nadad is the root, meaning to be a vagabond, to move to and fro, to wander. It's just another way to say to flee. Wahaya call, ra'ayaka, ya dawad, of thee, mamka, and will say, it is laid waste. Wa amar shada, naya nawa, Nineveh is laid waste. Who will bemoan her, right? That word is nawad, which is who will be moved for her, right? As in moved in emotion or bemoan, right? Laha meaning unto her. And from whence shall I seek comforters unto thee, ma'ayan? Ayan meaning where, ayan meaning from whence, abakwash, manachamyam laka. So Nahum 3:8 says, art thou better than No, which is a place in Egypt, which was continuous or populous, which is another way to say populous, Amawan, which also means faith, or to be continuous, right? To be sure, right? Basically, Aman and Amath is the same thing. Truth, fidelity, Aman, Amath, right? Which says, which dwelt, Ha Yeshabah, or Yeshabia dwellers, upon the rivers, Ba Ya'arim, of the waters, Mayam Sabiab, round about, unto her, Laha, which was the Chayal, as in, it's another way to say coast, or sand, which was the coast of the sea, Yum. Here it says bulwark, trench, or wall, but it actually means coast of the sea, right? From sea, meaning from defense unto defense, which was her wall, as in her another way to say defense, which says Hawamatha, Nahum 3:9, Ethiopia, right, was her strength, meaning her might, Itazam, or Itazawam, and Egypt, and there is no end, and there's no end of her, right? Put and Lubim were thy helpers. Kawash Itazama, Wa Matazarium, Wa Ayan, Quataza, Kawat, Wa Labanyam, Hayawa, Ba Azarath Ka. Nahum 3:10, even she was carried away, which says halakha, meaning she went in captivity, because this is what Esau Edom did, right? When he regained control upon the whole earth, like Antiochus Epiphanes, right? The four generals, right? That came out of that dynasty, right? They Hellenized the known world, right? Persecuted the Jews, right? What you see today, right? You can't really have a Jake running around saying that, right? He's keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, calling upon Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? Which happened back then, right? Even today, right? Particular celebrities, right? They call out the small hats, and they get ostracized, if that is the word that I'm looking for, right? And so on and so forth. So it says, Gam Haya Lagala Halakha Bashabya. And it also says, even her little ones, they are wrung out, right? When you bring something out, right? For example, you wash your garment by hand, you're squeezing the liquid out of it to dry it up, right? Which is the root word is yarat, right? Or to sometimes you'll read it as Ratash, which is a different meaning, meaning to dash, right? For example, you have particular almonds, right, that you want to get the core from, or coconuts, right? You dash it, right? That word is ratash, right? Meaning to dash upon the head, which says gam alal ya ratash wa baraash, because that word alal meaning to drink up, right? In this case, it means the young ones, right? Because this is what happened when Esau Edom came into power, right? He subjugated the other nations, right? You have particular Edomites that went into the land of Ham, right? Forced them to pick particular crops, or they would get their hands done away with, right? And so on and so forth, right? The wickedness of Edom, which is why he has to be Obadiah 1 and 18, right? Because of his wickedness, not because the Lord said that what? That all have sinned, right? That's talking about the nation of Israel, right? You have particular Edomites that may have, right, repented, right? But at the end of the day, the Lord is not a respecter of persons, right? So if your forefather is an Edomite, you're going to be destroyed, right? You have particular Edomites that believe in the Lord, right? To live uh, uh, to have that Christian mindset, right? But if you're not of the elect, right? If you're not doing what the Lord said, if you're not of that bloodline, Esau, it was not given repentance, right? It was given through uh, the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? So it says, so even her young ones were dashed upon the head, and all the streets called Hawatazath, and upon her honorable ones, right? It says there was cast lots, right? Garal, it's another way to say lot. Yadwa, yad meaning to cast or to applaud, right? Which is where you get the name Yahweh, right? Which means Judah. Yahweh, meaning the Lord is praised or applauded, right? And upon her honorable ones, right? It cast a lot, right? Meaning, right, these so-called mighty men of these other nations, right, were brought low, right? The honorable men of these Jake leaders, right? These particular native Indian tribes that Esau Edom made a treaty with, which he broke, right? He eventually came in as that serpent, right? And came in peaceably, but war was in his heart, like it says in the scriptures, and he cast lots upon them, right? After he deceived them, like the devil that he is, right? And all her great ones were bound, Rathak, Bazaquayim, in chains. Wakal Gadaliah, Rathakwa, Bazaquayim. Let's look at that word Rathak, which says to to tie, to bind, meaning to uh, to be bound up, right? Zayaquath, meaning a missile, a spark, a firebrand, fetters, right? Which that root is Strong's H2187 Zanak, meaning to bind together, right? To spring up, right? Because that's what you have with particular yokes, right? It's got springs, it's got mechanisms, right? That gives it the ability to contract and to draw in, right? According to its design, right? Salakia. Nahum 3 and 11. Even thou shalt be drunken, because that word shakar means reward, but it also means strong drink, right? Because Esau Edom, right, thinks he's gonna go forward with his one world agenda, right? Says, thou shalt be, come atha, tha shakarya, thahaya, meaning thou shalt be hidden, na alama, because that word alam or alama, alam means young man, alama means young woman, but alam also means to hide, right? Even thou, gam atha, thou shalt seek strength from the enemy. Tabakwashia, ma aiza, ma awayab, right? Because these nations were conquered by Esau Edom, but then they seeked to trade with him because they had no choice. But now they're rising up, right? Even Jake, right? You have Jake, which is subjugated once by Esau, but now he's right. You have Jake coming up in the particular industries, right? The healthcare industry, right? Even these other nations, right? Because ultimately, right, you gotta when you have subjects, you have to appease them in one way, shape, or form. Which Esau is running out of options to appease his subjects, which is why he has to push that right new world agenda, which is why all kingdoms have an end, right? Except the Israelites, right? When we get that dominion, right, we're gonna have a, a complete and utter dominion, right? Because what? We're gonna be made perfect. We're gonna establish righteousness back on the earth, right? The Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushua wipe away all tears, right? He's gonna create new heavens, a new earth, right? Via a new dominion, right? As rightful heirs, right? Which were preordained since the foundation of the world, right? Which is why it says, right, that they shall seek strength because of the enemy, right? So all things work, right, for the goodness and the grace of the Lord, right? Nahum chapter 3 and verse 12. All thy fortresses um, which says are like figs upon the first fruits, which says, if they be shaken, and behold, there shall fall upon the mouth of the eater, right? Call ma batazar tha anayim, ein bakaryim, um ya nawaiwa, wana palwa al paya akol, right? Because at the end of the day, Esau's strength, like it says that in the book of Obadiah, that says all the enemies had eaten that he have eaten of thy bread have lifted up the heel against thee, right? Which that heel represents, which is Iquab in the Hebrew tongue, which is why Jacob is called Yah Iquab, because he is a heel, or he is the end of a matter, right? So all things have an end, right? And the end is being made manifest via these nations rising up, via Jake, right? The remnant of the Israelites waking up and prophesying the end. All these things, right, have to come to pass, right? It's only a matter of time, right? Which is a perfect timing, right? Which is why Apostle Tahar speaks about what Jacob's trouble, right? The seventh trumpet, right? If you look at the breakdowns, right? If you're keen onto the words of prophecy, onto the what our elders, the apostles of Great Millstone, Hebrew Israelite camp, right, has spoken about, right, via the revelation of it, Yahushua HaMashiach and the prophecies, right, you're gonna know that the Jacob's trouble, which is the great tribulation, which is right the seventh trumpet, the seven trouble. Seven represents right perfection. 10 represents completion, right? So at that perfect time, all these things will be made manifest, right? So it says all thy fortresses are like the figs with the first fruits, right? So all the strength of Esau would be given unto the nations, would be given his fruits would be to sustain, right, the remnant of Israel, right, into these latter days, right? And of course, there would be a shaking, right? There would be a fall, right, upon the mouth of the eater, meaning the nations would be nourished in order to rise up. Uh, Israel, right, would be preserved, right, and the right, what you would call, right, the last captivity, right, like it says in Revelation chapter 12, she is nourished for a time and a time and a half a time, right? Nahum chapter 3 and 13. Behold, your people are as women in your midst. Hana Amka Nashayim Bakor Rabka, right? Which is why Esau, right? He drew out from Afghanistan and these other Middle Eastern nations, right? You have ultimately, right, America Babylon the Great doesn't want that smoke, right, with Russia and so on and so forth, right? It says, unto your enemies will be open, surely shall be open your gates. La ayabyaka pathach, na pathachwa shayarya, right? Because this is the land of unwalled villages, like it says in the book of Ezekiel, right? Because all you have is there's another precept which says the highways, um, something about highways, right? Crooked highways. I can't think about that precept. I believe that's in the book of Isaiah. The highways, the line of confusion, right? You have highways 95 goes north, and 84 goes east or whatnot, right? The line of confusion. Just talking about these are all open states, right? You have certain Edomites complaining about that. They're saying, "Oh, you know where the hell is all these particular nations coming from? Why are they coming here? Why are they taking jobs, factories to other states, to other countries, and whatnot?" Right? You can look up, like Elder Apostle Kabar says, right, that documentary America Under Siege, right? More because it's America's under siege in more ways than one, right? Let's keep it 100%, right? It says thy land shall be says the gates of thy land shall be set wide upon open unto thine enemies, which says unto your enemies surely shall be open the gates of your land, Ratazaka, right? It will be consumed by fire, thy bars, Akala Ash Barach Barach Yaka, your bars. Because that word Barak means to flee, Baryach meaning like a bars or a lock, right? Nahum chapter 3 and verse 14, which says, water for the siege, thou shalt draw out unto thee, Maya Matazar Sha'ab Yaka, or Salagia Sha'ab Ya Laka. The word Sha'ab means to draw out, right? Strengthen your fortress, right? Go into the clay, Kazakya Mabatazar Yaka, meaning strengthen your fortress, right? Because you have, or Kazak means to encourage your fortress, because this is what Esau is doing. Esau Edom, right? If you read between the lines, read these various news broadcasts, right? These articles being published, right? They know their time is coming, right? They're strengthening their fortresses. Why? Because what is Kilgate's doing? These other Edomite nations. You have conflicts in Ukraine. You have unrighteous decrees being established. You have store lootings, riots, which these are all false flags, right? You have a sabotage of the economy, right, in order to bring the RFID chip, the mark of the beast, right, going into the clay, meaning printing more of that fiat currency, right, creating more debt, right, Ba'aya, Ba'tayat, which that word tayat means clay or mire, clay, mud, mire. Wa Ramasya, meaning and tread upon the clay, which is a chamar is another way to say clay. Chamar, it means red or clay, right? Meaning overproduce these the paper dollar, right? Create the more debt ceilings, give out more loans, right? Not to the average uh, Babylonian, but right to these companies, the bailouts, right, and so on and so forth. So that word hamar means cement, mortar, clay, mire, heap. Make strong the brick kiln. Ha chazayak ya malaban, meaning strengthen the bricks, right? Because you have certain infrastructures that are even right being updated, right? But there's a reason why it's written last, because that's his last interest, right? He's making a kingdom that is gonna fall structurally better, right? Nahum 3 and 15, there thou shall devour thee the fire, thou shalt be cut off by the sword, Shem Thakal Ka Ash Thakar Yath Ka Harab. Thou shalt be eaten up like the cankerworm. Thakal Ka Yalak. Let's look at that word for cankerworm. Definition: the caterpillar of a North American moth that has wingless females. Cankerworms consume the buds and leaves of trees. Yada yada yada. So it says, make thyself heavy like the cankerworm. Ha thakabad ka yalak. Right, because at the end of the day, right, you have these Edomites, you have these other nations, right, which are swarming into America, Babylon the Great, right? They're being brought in, right, to produce. Again, this country is it's an industry, right? It's not about freedom. It's not about how you feel, right? This is a industry. It's about industry. It's not about you. It's not about what is right. Right? This is a corporation. America, Babylon the Great is a corporation. Right? It says, make thyself heavy like the locust. Hatha kabadya ka arabah. Right? Because Esau Edom is not worried about, right, who he brings in. Right? This is about profit. Right? Which that profit, it was about profit. Now it's about, right, Esau Edom's realizing that it's no longer about that. It's about keeping hold of his hegemony, right? Keeping his control upon the nations. And he saw that coming, right, as a whole, right? Which is why, right, when you're in control of something, you have to give it out in piecemeal, right? Until you buy yourself. He's basically Esau has been buying himself enough time, right, to be able to establish, right, his new world agenda, right? Which is why it says, "Make thyself many as the locust," because he's using the other nations to be able to right, build up his corporations, right, to build up a name, right, to fight his wars, right, which is why you got other nations, right, in his armies, right. You have other nations pushing that Babylonian mindset, right. They're thinking they're doing it on their behalf, or right, because eventually they think they're gonna spoil America, Babylon, and great the other nations, but they're really doing the bidding of Esau Edom. Esau Edom's doing the bidding of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai to bring the Charagma, and eventually, right, uh, uh, the second coming of Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach, who you call Jesus Christ, right? All these things are going to bring about the end of this wicked rulership, not just in America, Babylon Great, but throughout the whole earth, right? Nahum, right, 3:16. So, like it says in the book of Job, that the deceived and the deceiver are his. So it reads, "Thou hast multiplied thy merchants more than the stars of the heavens. The cankerworm spoileth," which is that word pashat, meaning to invade, right? To expand, to spread, to strip off, to raid, to invade. because, like I said, right, these other nations are working on their behalf, right? Those that have eaten thy bread, I lifted up the heel, right? And it says, and flieth away, right? Because ultimately, right, these other nations are distancing themselves from America, Babylon Great, right? They're going to come up against it, right? So it says, Ha Rabiath, Wakal Yakab, Makawa, Kavya, Hashemayim Yalak, Pashat, Vayaap, Nahum 3 and 17. Your crowned are like the locust, meaning the other nations, right, that were given the ability, right, to oppress the so-called Black, Hispanic, Native American, right, to be given the ability to, right, to sustain themselves and expand, right, their interests, right, as locusts, right, meaning as many, right, and your captains are like grasshoppers, which says, which jump about, right, which says, Madazar Yaka Ka Araba Wata, what's that, Tapsar Yaka Ka Gawab Gabia. That word Tapsar means captains, which is Strong's H2951. A satrap, a governor, meaning a sort of a commander of sorts, a marshal, right? For example, in particular airlines, you have air marshals and things of that sort, right? Let's look up that definition for marshal. Which is an officer of the highest rank in the armed forces of some countries, federal municipal law officer, or one that bears an office, right, which is these other nations. They've been given an office, right? They've been exalted according to Deuteronomy 28 and 15 and on down, right, to be above Israel, right, to oppress them, to be a thorn on their side, right? It's just another way to say officer, office bearer, right, if you want to just keep it simple. Like the grasshoppers which leap, right? Because Esau says jump, and then the nations say how high. For now, says which encampeth upon the hedges of the day, ha chanayim bagadarath bayawam, because this is Esau's day, right? We're in a spiritual darkness, right? The daytime is when the Israelites rule, right? Which is why the scriptures say we are the children of the day. We should not walk in darkness, right? Which camp about the day, right? In the cold, Torah, which says, which is, you can compare that to the love of many waxing cold. It says the sun ariseth, Shamash Zaracha, right? Meaning when the truth comes out, the remnant wake up, the end is be made manifest, right? And shall flee away, and they will not know. Which says, from their place in which they are, which says wa nawadad wada'a nadai makwamwa ayan, right? Meaning when the remnant wake up, right? These nations are going to be in straits, right? Will be divided one against another. They will not know their place in their councils, right? So it says, "A slumber their shepherds, even the king of Assyria, Namwa Rayaka Malak Ashawar," because Assyria is what? That area in the Middle East. You have Elamites, you have Semitic tribes, which are still here today, but they identify with which are the Chaldeans, right? The stargazers, the wizards, all that spirit is in the Middle East right now, which is why you have these particular philosophies and right that rule over there, because these are these other nations which have gathered uh, and hijacked particular religions, right, in order to forward their own agendas, right? But you have right, even here today, right, you have a Virgin Mary statue, right, a cross or a rock, right? You have candles around it, right? You have all kinds of bugged out philosophies, right, which are prevalent even in those sections of the earth today, right? So it says a shepherd slumber, king of Assyria, right? Because ultimately, right, Esau Edom's been given the upper hand because he controls, right, the currency. He has the armies, right? These other nations may be able to call upon their particular spirits and right, but at the end of the day, the sword, Esau has that sword, right? And Satan is on Esau's side at the end of the day. So it says, "They shall dwell, your honorable ones, Yashakanwa ad Yaryaka," says, "They are scattered, your people, Nampashwa Amka." Now that word Nampash is not like soul, right? It is actually it's either written Napach, meaning to spread, or Napash, right? The Ha is just replaced by the Sha, just means to spread out or scattered. It's another way to say scattered, right? Your people upon the mountains, Al Haharyim, meaning divide. There's going to be a divisions, right, within these particular nations, right? Satan will be divided against Satan, and there is none to gather, and there is none that gathereth. Wa ayan ma kwabataza, right? Because as you have these economies failing, you have, right, they're not going to be next to each other in order to be able to, right, Esau knows what divide and conquer means, right? As long as you have, right, particular nations in particular areas, and that's the Lord's work, because if you know particular nations are in particular areas, you're going to know that they're not easily reachable unto themselves, right? So when you scatter them, right, ultimately they communicate by the means of trade within themselves, you're going to know that they are, right, assisting each other, right? So this is all right. Esau, he knows what he's doing, right? He's like a master builder, right? On the left hand side, of course, right, you have, right, like Paul the Apostle said, as a master builder, meaning in the word and his labor, right, which is laboring in the word to the paraspace of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, Barakak Wadash, right? So you have the left hand and the right hand working, right? And the water Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai for the grace and mercy that we have every day, right? The loving kindness, right, which is given, right, via, right, the tender mercies of David, right? So it says there is none to gather, right? Because the Lord is going to gather. Esau is not gathering. The nations are gathering. The Lord is gathering the remnant. The nations are, they're definitely not gathering. They're dividing, right? Nahum 3:19. There is none. It says kaha, which is translated as healing, but really that word is to dim. Salakia. Dimming, lessening, or mitigation, right? It's another way to say mitigation. So nobody is pleading the cause for another. Everyone's going after their own way. Even the other nations, right? 2/3. But we have the mind of Hamashayach, right? There's no mitigation of your bruise or your breaking shabar. Ayan kaha, la shabar ka. So it says your bruise is grievous, is sickening, kala, right? Because you other nations, you're fighting against the counsel of the Lord, right? The Lord's bringing the plagues via Esau, Edom, and you other nations. You know, you're doing your part, right? Because you're trying to bruise the heel of Esau, Edom, right? But really, you're doing the heavy lifting for us, right? Because we're not supposed to do anything. We're supposed to give out this word, and that's it, right? So it says, "Thou hast been smitten. All that hear of your report, Makathka called Shemaiah, Shemaika, shall clap the quai, meaning to strike, to strike, will strike the hands, because that word kap means palm, against the al-yaka, right? So we're clapping because what? We see that victory coming, right? The nations are clapping because they see Esau falling. Esau's clapping because he knows that he's going to bring hell, right? So nobody's really, it's a lose-lose for you other nations and Esau. Yeah, we're losing, we're downtrodden, right? We don't have no help, but right, we know what time it is. We know that time is coming. We know that change is coming, right? So it says, because upon who has thou not passed over thy wickedness continually? Kaya al maya la'a ibara rayatka tamayad. Right, because to whom hast thou not pushed your philosophies, your wickedness? Right, Esau, Edom, upon the other nations, 2/3 of our people. Right, but we have been given that spiritual eyesight to know, right, what the Lord is going to perform, right, which is a short work upon the earth. Yahweh Bashem El Shai, right, Lord willing, right, if we are of that number, right, like we say humbly, right, even our elders and apostles at Great Millstone Hebrew Israelite Camp that has been laboring for decades and decades, right, and that's those are those are respectable men. When they say humbly, even after enduring all this time, right, for the Lord's sake, for His righteousness, for His loving kindness, Not for them. These are selfless men that have labored, right, for the ability for you to receive some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? So the water, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right, for them and for the truth. Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Barakatham, to your hopeful remnant, right, the sincere, right, Akim, right, and those that believe in the Lord and in the day of his return. Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakodash. This is Nahum chapter 3, going into the Hebrew. Lord willing, you were edified. It's Brother Yatazadak Hero Israel. And as always, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Kwam Yasha'Allah, Abad Babal, and Shalom.